Now, of the 9 African countries going to the World Cup, only one has not been to the World Cup before. In fact, as it stands, I know there's still some playoffs going on. It is one of 3 teams that has never been to the World Cup going this time. Jordan, Uzbekistan, then Cabo Verde, Cape Verde, the Blue Sharks, baby. We're in here. Now, if you're not a geography buff or from that general region, or especially invested in Amber Rose's genealogy, I wouldn't fault you for never having heard of this tiny island nation on the west coast of Africa. Indeed, even in football terms, they have only recently emerged as a force to contend with. I hear you. Of course, they've only recently emerged as a force. This is, after all, their first time at the World Cup. Fair enough, but those two things don't often go together. Nations like Mali and Guinea and Burkina Faso have never been to the World Cup, but have always had great players and fared admirably at the AFCONs. Zambia won the AFCON African Cup of Nations in 2012, I believe. 2012 or 2013. In any case, but they were also finalists back in the early 90s. That's Zambia. Liberia boasts the only African Ballon d'Or winner, right? George Weah, who I've met, and I say that every time he comes up on this channel. But Cape Verde didn't even qualify for their first African Cup of Nations until 2013. Right. But before we get back to talking about their football credentials, let's quick see who this nation is. This tiny island nation of the west coast of Africa, as I've said, has a population of just under 525,000 people by 2024 count, and is just a little over 4,000 square kilometers, or just over 1,500 square miles. In both, it is among the 5 smallest on the continent. It has even less people than islands like Reunion and Western Sahara, which is not an island, of course, but it's a secessionist territory. It is 50th out of 54 in terms of of geographic size. It is also the second smallest nation by population to ever qualify for the World Cup, after Iceland in 2018. The island of Cabo Verde was actually uninhabited until 1462, when the Portuguese explorers settled there, and it became a major hub during the transatlantic slave trade, sitting between Africa, Europe, and the Americas in the Atlantic. By the 16th century, it was an important stop for ships heading to the New World, a crossroads of trade, faith, and empire. The Portuguese settlers and enslaved West Africans there led to the creation of one of the first Creole communities of the era. Now, based on the relative obscurity of Cabo Verde and their smaller population, many of you might be thinking you don't know anybody from there, but I bet you do. It is people of Cape Verdean descent. In the US, Cape Verdeans have been in America since the 19th century, especially around the Massachusetts, New Bedford, Brockton, Providence, Boston area. In fact, a good friend of mine, Dr. Janelle Malena Edwards, her work as a historian in the Africana studies space focuses on the Cape Verdean populations in that region. Shout out to Dr. Edwards here. Indeed. But who are some of these famous people of Cape Verdean descent that you may be familiar with? So, from the US side, you have people like Left Eye. Shout out to Lisa Left Eye Lopez of the group TLC, No Scrubs, Waterfalls. She was the rapper of the group, remember? But sometimes it seems completely forbidden to discover the love that you kept so well hidden. I remember that on one of her songs. Horace Silver was a legendary jazz pianist of the Jazz Messengers. Dina Vera, aka Nitty Scott, was an MC. People like Nani, the soccer player Nani, who played for Manchester United for many, many years, and he sometimes was even spoken of as being Ronaldo's successor. He never got to those heights, but very successful. Amilcar Cabral, who was one of the leading revolutionaries, right, of anti-colonial revolutionaries, who was born in Guinea-Bissau but to Cape Verdean parents and was educated in Lisbon. Amilcar Cabral was the founder of the African Party for the Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde, and is in the conversation among the most influential African revolutionary thinkers of the 20th century. profound thinker, indeed. So, how have they been able to do this? How have Cabo Verde been able to rise to the forefront so quickly, indeed? So, as I mentioned earlier, right, the first time at the tournament, at the African Cup of Nations, was in 2013. That was held in South Africa. Ended up in a group with South Africa and Morocco and Angola. That's a crazy group. All three of those countries have been to the World Cup. It's very rare that you find a group at the African Cup of Nations where three of the members have been to the World Cup at this stage. Now, going forward, because there's going to be more countries making it to the World Cup, sure. But as it stands, back in 2013, this was rare. They made it, drew with South Africa and Morocco, then beat Angola to make it to the quarterfinals, lost to Ghana 2-0. Incredible. This tiny country, right? But, in 2015, they were back there, didn't qualify out of the group. But the fact that they're qualifying for back-to-back African Cup of Nations, you're seeing something is happening here. That was a tough group too with Tunisia, Democratic Republic of Congo. Both have been to the World Cup before, and Zambia, who hasn't, but they do their things. They would skip the next two tournaments, but they would be back in 2021 in Cameroon, where they were in a group with Ethiopia, Cameroon, and Burkina Faso. Beat Ethiopia, drew with Cameroon, lost to Burkina Faso, made it to the round of 16. Okay. Then in 2023, the most recent African Cup of Nations as of right now, which was played in 2024, COVID delays, they went into a group with Ghana, Mozambique, and Egypt. Again, two heavyweights of the game, and Mozambique, which is significantly bigger. And this time around, they finished. They made it to the quarterfinals. They were unbeaten, beat both Ghana and Mozambique, and then drew with Egypt. Incredible! And they made it to the quarterfinals, where they lost narrowly to South Africa after extra time. So they're considered one of the surprise packages of the tournament. So how did they get so good all of a sudden? Right? Quote unquote, all of a sudden. Well, the big thing is a couple of things. One, Cape Verde might only have 500,000 people, but it is a very robust diaspora of 1 million Cape Verdeans, right? So more than twice the population of the living in Portugal, the Netherlands, France, Luxembourg. We've already spoken about their presence in the US for what that matters. So they started deliberately recruiting players of Cape Verdean roots who trained in European academies, especially Portuguese ones like Benfica, Sporting, Porto. So you get players like Ryan Mendes, who trained in France, Gary Rodriguez from the Netherlands, Vozinha, who's domestically based but Europe seasoned, Bebe, right? Famously, you may know Bebe because he was on the books of Manchester United for a while, right? For a while, thought of as the worst player ever signed by Sir Alex Ferguson. But he showed out, and in these tournaments, particularly in 2023, he was a standout player. But he was born in Portugal, raised in Europe, but now key to Cape Verde's success. They have that. They've also had some very good coaching, and also just a very deliberate political will, right? By the powers that be to really invest in this, because a lot of other countries also have significant diasporas. A lot of African countries do have significant diasporas, just based on how colonialism played out, but very few of them can call upon. That's a large part of why Morocco has been successful, even though Morocco is a far bigger nation. But a lot of those players have actually not gone up in Morocco at all. So that's something that African nations, small country, big diaspora, smart federation, stable coach, and the result is this success story, right? Which is, even if nothing else happens, even if they go to the World Cup, we wish them well and hope they do well. But even if they have a middling performance out there, they've already done enough to be the pride of Africa in that regard. So shout out to Cape Verde for a team that didn't even make the World Cup. I've given them the most attention here, but they deserve it because it's their first time, but also it's such a remarkable story to tell for a nation of 525,000 people, or 1,500 square miles in size. Go the Blue Sharks, go Cabo Verde. 1.